Hello and welcome back to Work in Progress with Nicole Engelmann. That's just me. I'm joined by Maddy Shine. This is our second part of our conversation where we're talking more about SEO and keywords and how to kind of get the best out of those things for your business. Thank you again for joining, Maddy.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's been lovely to be here.
Yeah. Always love a chat with you.
Okay.
Yeah. I guess let's get started. Keywords. Tell us about them. How do you figure out what keyword is actually, or most people probably heard keywords, what it is, but how do you figure out which keywords work for you in your business?
Diving right in, I like it.
Yeah.
So let's do it.
German efficiency.
Yes, I wasn't going to make that comment, but yes, and I
It's
appreciate
fine.
it. Okay, so keywords. A lot of people guess at keywords, I've noticed. A lot of people come to me and they're like, I just sort of hope for the best, lick my finger, stuck it in the wind, try to take a wild guess at what people might be searching for. Or they might have asked their great aunt Dot, or they might have, asked the Bob, their colleagues or whatever. Actually, there's some really brilliant tools out there. There's a whole bunch of different tools. The one I like to use is because it's budget friendly and pretty accurate. It's called Keywords Everywhere. And you can just sign up to it. It's about $15, usually every 6 months, depending on how much you use it. And you can check how many people on average, it's very approximate, all tools are in this way, how many people on average in the UK or your chosen country, according to the settings you choose, are searching for that phrase. So, for example, I'm working with an illustrator at the moment, and she has been using the phrase bespoke illustration to try and attract more people to her bespoke illustration service. But the trouble is, no one's using bespoke. And I could tell this from the different tools. So I looked through the different combinations: bespoke art, bespoke artwork, bespoke illustration, bespoke painting, bespoke drawing. People aren't searching for those things as much as they are searching for, I think we've settled on custom artwork in the end. So it's quite a useful tool to actually see. I can't remember the specific numbers off the top of my head, but it can be quite a big jump. You might notice a difference between London branding photographer and personal branding photographer. And you might think, well, why wouldn't I go for personal branding photographer? Actually, because it's got a lot more people searching for it. But actually, do you want to have worldwide fame? If you want to travel all over the world, great. But you're going to be competing with a lot more people. It's not location specific. If you don't want to travel, there's no point. But if you're going to go for London branding photographer, then that's much easier because that's going to be the top of Google much more quickly, much easier. You're still going to have a lot of competition because London's a big place, but it's going to be easier to rank for. So once you know the keywords that that tool is showing you what people are searching for, then that's when you can start to match it up with pages of your website. And then you can start to rank on Google much more easily.
Yeah, and how often should you use those keywords on a page or on a website?
So there's no kind of set number, but you should use it in the minimum places: in the heading on your page, in the URL, obviously with the exception of things like your homepage, the URL, the heading, in the first paragraph of your page, at least one other time in the page, in the text, and one subheading. So that's the minimum. But it really does depend, because a lot of people still depend on visuals to tell the story. And the trouble is, you need to have the text to tell the story and to actually give the information about the service, to actually sell the product or service. So, you need minimum 300 to 400 words of text on your page, because then you also need to put it in the SEO title and SEO meta description. And that's the text that appears in Google search results.
Does it always have to be the whole key phrase, or is it one is London, then maybe a couple sentences later is like branding photographer, or does it always have to be London branding photographer
Oh,
to
it has
count?
to count, because it's so competitive. It has to be together. You could say Google is getting cleverer. It is, because AI. But it might, if you say branding photographer in London, that sort of might still count. But to be honest, to give you the best chance, just use the phrase. Use
Okay,
together.
cool. And how does the Google Search Console kind of fit into SEO and stuff like that?
So Google Search Console is really important because we have to tell Google we exist. It doesn't just magically know, oh, Nicole created a new website, then let's go and have a look at it. We actually had to set it up with a free tool called Google Search Console. And so what you do is you set up an account, use your Google login. Usually, most people have them these days, right? And basically, you set up an account with Google Search Console. Usually, you have to verify your website. So just make sure that they know you are definitely an owner of that website. So usually there's like a line of code that you have to add. And with most website platforms, that's relatively easy. Squarespace and Wix, they make it relatively easy these days. WordPress is slightly more fiddly. But to be honest, if you have a WordPress website, then usually you either know what you're doing or you have someone on your team who knows what they're doing to verify your website. And then you give Google Search Console a site map. So literally a map of your website pages and posts. And the easiest way to create that map is using the Yoast plugin. There are other SEO plugins available. They all have their moment in the sun of why they're popular and why they're good. I love Yoast. I have used it for years for many reasons, but one of them is that it automatically creates a sitemap for you. And then if you don't have WordPress website though, then usually you can just put your domain and you can and then put /sitemap.xml. And that's usually because Squarespace and Wix create a sitemap for you. You put that into Google Search Console under the sitemaps button, and then that tells Google that your website exists. So then that basically Google comes and has a look at your website, has a look at the pages and the posts, goes, oh, they've been talking about London branding photography loads. I'm going to show them people who are searching for London branding photographer. But this is why it's important to mention your keyword quite a few times. Not for every word, not for everything you say. You've still got to tell a story. You've still got to walk them through the process. But this is how it all connects together. Because if you are not clear on your keywords, if you're sort of just hoping for the best and saying, well, I really like the words that I've got on my website, even though it's not clear as to what your topic of expertise is, then Google Search Console is not going to help you. And therefore, you are not going to get seen by the people who are searching for someone like you with your services and products.
And will the sitemap update itself when you add pages, or do you have to re-upload something again and again?
So whenever you update any pages or add any blogs to your website or make any slight changes to your website, go in, update that sitemap again, because Google will, after a while, it will start coming to update itself. It will suddenly go, oh yeah, I can see that they're making lots of changes to their website. I'll come and have a look again. But if you just leave it be, particularly if you've never done this before, then it won't. And so you have to do it, I would say, at least on a monthly basis. If you're updating your website more often, then update the sitemap more often.
And obviously, Google rewards you for updating your website, right? Because then it means, oh, she's active and, kind of thing. Like that's good for SEO if you update the website.
Oh, yes. Yes. You need to keep your website dynamic. So basically, it's like, okay, if you just set up your website, however beautiful it may be, however proud of it you may be, it's an empty art gallery with no one coming to visit it because you are not telling Google, you are not telling the world that your website exists. You're not pointing content towards it, whether that's email, social, word of mouth, whatever it is. What you actually need to do is you need to update it on a regular basis. So whether that's updating the pages with fresh images or whether that's tweaking the text so it converts better, because again, people might be landing on it but not booking. Whether that's writing fresh blogs, whatever it is, you need to keep your website dynamic and keep it moving. Just like our bodies, we can't let it be sedentary,
Yeah. Yeah.
as much as we are all laptop prawns, like it's quite important to keep on top of website updates so that Google's like, oh look at that over there. Let's go and look at that website. They're adding advice on London branding photography. Let me go and show that latest blog to more people who are Googling that question.
Yeah. So blogs are basically the best tool to update your website regularly
Oh, for
without
sure.
having, yeah.
For sure. I mean, it's why I used to teach a course on it. And it's something that I harp on about to all my clients. And people always say to me, how often should I blog? That's not how it is. Blog on a regular basis. So, again, to use the exercise analogy, how often should I exercise? Well, what's your goal? What are you trying to do, right? So actually, you need to be blogging on a regular basis. So whether that's once a month in the beginning, great. Then repurpose the shit out of that content. My goodness. Tell your email list, create social media content, all the different platforms where you're active or maybe not active. Maybe get active again there. Like really kind of pump it up and get as many eyes as you can on that blog. Then you can build up to once a fortnight. Then you can build up to once a week. And because then what you're doing is you're like, oh, look at that. Like she's talking about this aspect of branding photography now. That'll be so useful for people who need to know about that. And and then of course, in that blog, you've got calls to action, which is come and book you, come and inquire your services. Nicole wrote such amazing advice. I definitely want to know more about her, what her price is. Go and have a look at the link to the pricing page, whatever it might be. So it's definitely a brilliant cornerstone of how you can get more visible, particularly on Google, particularly with search engines. Yeah.
Yeah. Because more and more people are saying, "Oh, blogs are dead," right? But not really. They're evergreen.
Oh, for sure, for sure. The people who say blogs are dead are either trying to sell you something that is basically just like a blog, but another platform. I'm looking at you, Substack. Um, or they're people who just don't want to write. And I get it. There's a lot of different people with different abilities, and maybe writing isn't your thing. But there's ways around that. For example, there's voice typing tools. So you can talk to your computer and it will type for you. You can use AI then to then edit the blog. You can, if you don't want to use AI, then you can edit the blog after you voice typed it. There's so many different ways that you can structure the work, but you do need to be visible on Google in order to bring in that new audience.
This is actually what I've been doing the last few months, the voice note thing, because I find it really helpful. I have problems creating something from zero and bringing in a structure that makes sense. So I just ramble on with a thought of an idea, 3 minutes. One blog post was 22 minutes. um,
Wow.
but I was talking about my AtomicCon experience. So there was a lot of stuff going on. I finished it. It's like, oh gosh, 22 minutes. I rambled on. That's a podcast. And then I just literally put it into ChatGPT and it's like, oh, can you make sense of this and structure this as a blog post and, kind of optimize it with these keywords that I use or want to kind of look for. And then I did it and I just went through it again because that's how I use AI anyway. I like me, AI, and then me again because it's a tool. It's not supposed to replace anything really. I wouldn't have been able to create that blog post without it. I probably would have like, this too much time, too much, can't make sense of this, and I would have abandoned it. And that's a missed opportunity.
Yeah, I think that sounds great. And I used to be really against AI. I'll hold my hands up for sure and say that. But I've definitely seen how AI can benefit my work, can benefit my clients' work. And I think that's the key, what you just said. It's me, then AI, then me. If you don't have the me sandwich, then
Mm.
then you're doing yourself a disservice, because what's the point? What's the point? If you're just using AI just to churn out the blogs, and you've got to use the me AI me, because, well, if you're going to use AI at all. For some clients, I don't use AI at all because they don't want to use it. That's fine. But it's really key to remember why you're doing this, what you want to put into it yourself. And also, AI doesn't have all the answers. It really doesn't. Like, God knows it has a certain structure that people are cottoning on to now. I know that lots of copywriters are like, I was using the M dash before ChatGPT. Yeah, sure. Lots of people weren't, though. And lots of people are cottoning on to, oh, AI wrote that, or it sounds like AI wrote that. And there's a suspicion. And then that sort of destroys the point of you creating the content in the first place.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And I think as well that with AI in general, it's helping me a lot to kind of make sense of stuff or get ideas. Or it's yeah, like you said, it's a tool. It's not supposed to, replace anyone. I still hired a copywriter with like a sales page because I value that the personal service. And I get why people don't want to use it. I also do treat it as a person that I would work with. So in a sense, like, I'm not saying good morning, how are you? But as if I had a personal assistant or someone who is good in content, I would still tell them exactly the same thing I tell AI. I would tell, them my idea and what I want to achieve with this. And then they would use their expertise to create it. So that's how I kind of see AI for me at the moment, how I use it.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. And I know that there's the environmental issue for sure, but there's a stat that's sort of being thrown around like, every time you use ChatGPT, then it's the same as a bottle of water being poured out. Well, I don't know whether you've seen how much water gets poured out with doom scrolling and time spent on social media, but it's a lot more. And I'm not defending AI. I'm not doing that. That's
Yeah,
not my
yeah.
job. But what I have noticed is that there's a lot of upset about AI, and I get why that's happening, but it is a tool. It is not designed to replace. There was a weird thing that I read. It was when the camera was invented, then artists were very upset, painters and artists. And I thought that was so interesting. And I'm not trying to be flippant about it, but to compare the two, it's quite something because actually the camera didn't replace artists. It changed things significantly and life was never the same again. And then I remember like when the selfie was invented, then photographers were like shitting all over it basically, like, oh my God, I'm sure that you heard that, like what are you even doing? Like, why are you taking photos of your dinner? Like I remember even saying that myself 20 years ago. So like there's always going to be very significant changes, and then it's up to us to decide how we use it. I can't talk about AI at a grander scale of things. It's far too upsetting. Like finding out about Spotify founders investing all our cash from Spotify premium accounts into AI military. I'm going off on a tangent now, so feel free to stop me. But
No, no. That's the first time I heard that. That's
oh
really
right,
interesting.
yeah, it's
Yeah.
it's wild. It's wild to me that. So yes, what is it? With great power comes great responsibility. Line from
Yeah.
Spider-Man, right? So like it's just
Yeah, yeah.
it's got to be a tool for us, and we've got to be aware, and we've got to educate ourselves. And there's no such thing as an AI expert in the small business world, I feel, because we don't know enough. There isn't enough, yeah. It goes
Yeah.
back to being aware and educating yourself.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I totally agree. You have to make it out with yourself, what you're comfortable with and
Yeah,
what you aren't.
for
So
sure.
I always feel like live and let live.
Yes.
It's, kind of thing. I mean, we're going off on a tangent now, but it's the same with religion. I'm not religious, but I don't care if anyone else is and what they believe in. It's the same with how you run your business or what tools you use. If one works for you and you use it responsibly, why
Yeah.
not? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think responsibility is the key, because when you're running a small business, then it's like, well, that person told me to use it. It's like, no, but you're actually responsible for using it, aren't you? You're responsible for the work that you're charging people for for what you're putting out into the world. And I think that in the world of small business, we're not taught the sense of responsibility. We're just
Yeah.
not. In fact,
I
in the
think
world, we're not
in
taught.
general, yeah,
Yes, in
yeah.
general, we're not taught a sense of
It's literally
responsibility.
school hasn't taught us anything about, it taught us about fitting into boxes, doing what we're told, but not about thinking for yourself, really.
For sure.
Another tangent. Uh, to go back a little bit about the blogging and the keywords and stuff, we stick with a London branding photographer. Should I always just concentrate on that, or should I also go for, or what other things that my potential clients look for? What other keywords could there be that they then, look at me like, whatever, female entrepreneur,
Yeah.
and then should you always just blog about your personal branding and tips, or should you also like, this happened to me in my business and I learned this. Almost a journal where you also talk about experiences. What's
You
your...
can absolutely tell stories. Telling stories is so vital because it's vital for human connection. Like when we meet each other, we're not like, hello, London branding photographer, and you're not like, hello, SEO expert, and that's all we ever talk about. We'll tell stories. We make each other laugh. We remember that experience, and not wanting to be, again, LinkedIn bro marketer about it, but that's the secret. You've got to make people feel something. So when you are blogging, this is again what AI cannot make people do. It's like you need to be sharing those stories. So yes, share what you gain from going to a Comic Con. share something that happened to you last weekend that, you don't even have to have a business lesson from it. I think that's a LinkedIn thing that we've been told that we have to have. Um, I think that when we can, obviously we can have these pleasant surprises that do teach us things and we can share that. But I do think that we need to remember what makes us people, and remember why why we want to attract people to what we do. Um, which is because we want to get money for it, obviously, but because we actually love doing it. You love taking photos. I love supporting people with their online tech and website and all that jazz. And I think that that is what we forget. So whilst it might not be SEO to the max, share your story. You know, um, I think the two most recent blogs on Maddy Shine, on my Maddy Shine website, are how to get more sleep, answers from the community, and how to manage a business during a family crisis. They're both very personal, but they've got a lot of hits because people in my sort of community and following want to know. You know.
Yeah. Do you still sneak in the keywords then, or is that basically that's not the focus?
You can absolutely sneak in keywords wherever you like, but if it's not a natural fit, it's just going to feel weird. It's a bit like putting on shoes that used to fit you but don't, or it's just not going to feel good. And I've seen a lot of photographers in particular, try and do this, and I'm like, it's okay, you don't have to talk about your work as London, but you can say, you can of course mention it. As a London branding photographer, I I walked around London at the weekend and I saw these tourist spots. Of course, that would naturally tie into your work. But if you're going to be talking about, I went to the pub with my mates and I don't know, I'm trying to think of a random example, did a pub quiz, that might not tie in so well with. So there's not much point in optimizing it because you're telling a story about running a small business, I imagine, rather
Yeah,
than.
I have a Squarespace website, and with my blogs, I can add tags. So I guess the tags could, do they serve as keywords as well? So when I create a blog post, I have then the settings where it says category or tags. It's like keywords basically, like hashtags or something. And then they actually appear at the bottom of the page, depending on what your setting is.
Yeah, I mean, categories are great for like user friendliness, but tags
Yeah.
aren't really that important anymore. I
So they,
suppose.
they wouldn't replace the keyword if you don't mention it in the text.
No, no,
No.
no, no. Once
Yeah.
upon a time, maybe,
Hmm.
but no.
No.
It's another way of sort of sorting content
Hmm.
and trying to be helpful to the person reading it. So I think that we've all got, at one point, we got a bit too keen with adding all these tags. It's a bit like the hashtags that aren't so friendly anymore
Hmm.
on Instagram. So basically, talk about what you want to talk about, and
Yeah.
if you want to find more ideas to talk about London branding photography, a great tip is to look on People Also Ask. So whenever you Google anything, you'll always notice about halfway down or at the bottom of the page is 4 questions to do with what you've just Googled, and those all make brilliant blog titles. So you can then blog about those topics.
Yeah. That's also a way how you can look for keywords, right? When you enter, let's say, London branding photographer in the search bar,
Mm.
then comes up other possibilities.
Yes, and then you run those through Keywords Everywhere as well.
Hmm.
So Keywords Everywhere will also come up with suggestions for you. Once you've got it installed, it's a Chrome extension. So once you've got it installed on Chrome, it'll just come up with other suggestions as to what variations might be, which is how I
Yeah.
found custom artwork, because I kept going through down like a rabbit hole, to go back to
Yeah.
the Illustrator example.
Is there a limit of different keywords you would say you should use on a page or a blog post? You don't want that they cancel each other out or something. Is that a thing?
Yeah, so don't use the same keyword as a focus. You can still mention it on other pages and
Hmm.
blog posts, but don't have the same focus keyword for more than one page or blog post, because technically they're competing with each other. And this also goes for if you wrote a blog post or article on any other website in the world, then you can't copy and paste it onto your own blog, because again, it will technically compete against each other and cancel each other out.
Yeah, I had it recently where I did a blog collaboration with a website designer, and we talked about video. So her thing was about the technical side of putting video on your website, and mine was about actually doing the video, what to look out for. Because initially we talked about doing the same blog post, and then she's like, "Actually, I'm an SEO expert, and I know if we post exactly the same text, we're not helping each other." So we kind of created a complementary thing together. So for example, like sometimes it's London branding photographer and sometimes it's brand photographer London. So there are different keywords then, right? So if you're SEO expert, what would you like? Is it SEO expert London, SEO expert?
Exactly. So I've got SEO for small business. I've got a wedding SEO landing page because that's how I originally started out. So there's all sorts of different variations. So, for example, I've got a client who's a photographer in 3 different specialisms: branding, wedding, and family. So we've set up separate pages on her website for each of those. Then we've got blogs to point to those pages. So we blog the questions, we blog obviously the shoots that she does, the weddings that she photographs, and points to those pages, points to other helpful blogs that she's written, points to similar blogs that she's written, points to the sales pages. Because that's the whole point. So what we want to do is we want to draw attention to what we want to sell more of. That's why we're creating that content. Yeah.
So is it okay now to literally have a website for different things? Because that was one thing people have told us not to do. If you're a wedding photographer and you do branding, or if you're a SEO expert, but also have a community, you shouldn't have that on the same page because it's like can confuse people as well.
So yes, so basically, I would, in an ideal world, we'd have separate websites for everything. But managing 3 different websites as one person, it's unrealistic. So, for example, so I do have 3 websites, and it is unrealistic for me to consider managing those 3. So the way I do it is I have my Maddy Shine website where I have a huge amount of blog posts, podcasts, guest appearances, so many free resources that you can have a look at. But I'm not really that active. I don't sell anything from there at the moment. But it's got a very, very strong personal brand. You can see it. Then I've got Sassy and Soft, which is my done for you agency. So I really wanted to separate the two because Maddy Shine was very much about the coaching and the education, and Sassy and Soft is very much about the done for you SEO. Also, Maddy Shine is sort of moving more and more away from SEO. When I was doing the education, it was more about being visible generally. So it was, for me, the brands were more distinct. And then Pints and Purpose is distinct again because it's a community. It's a community that I've set up, and it has its own branding. It's got very similar values to Maddy Shine and Sassy and Soft, but it is its own entity. With the client who has the 3 specialisms, we do have a separate branding website, but she's not as active there. She's more active on the wedding and family website. So what we do is we kind of there's some cross pollination going on, but we point things to each other. So anytime we talk about the branding on the wedding site, we'll point it over to the branding site. We don't talk about the wedding stuff on the branding site, but you see what I mean. So it's we do have they are 2 distinct brands for her. If they weren't so distinct, then we would keep them, all on one website. But I wouldn't ever say create a sales page and try and optimize for all 3. I wouldn't even say try and optimize for 2 of those specialisms on the same page. So if you have a one-pager website, for example, you're doing yourself a disservice because you don't have different opportunities to optimize and therefore get found by new people.
Yeah, you're limiting yourself,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, brilliant. One last question, actually. Do you have a work in progress, or are you a work in progress? What are you currently working on? What can we see from you in the future, or is there anything that you're aiming for this year, next year?
I'm very much a work in progress. I think anyone who says they're not is a big fat liar. Like it's just I'm very much a work in progress. I'm figuring it out. I'm really enjoying that process more and more, giving myself slightly less of a hard time. learning more about how to do that, thanks to brilliant communities that I'm part of. And I really think that what I've got coming up is more of this, more of regulating my nervous system, more of doing what helps me and what supports me. And therefore, then I can support others. Because, what's that expression? You can't pour from an empty cup. You just can't. And I think so often when we're running a small business, then we're running any kind of business, we're taught like, don't worry about that. Don't worry about yourself. Just just keep pouring, keep pouring. No, I don't want to do that. I want to be happy and regulated and continue to be a work in progress.
Brilliant. I love that. I share the websites in the show notes anyway. But when are the events regular, the Pint and Purpose ones, or are they
Yes,
kind
so
of irregular?
so we have monthly meetups. So we've taken a little summer break for now, but we're starting again in September. So getting the venues booked, we've got guest speakers lined up. Yeah, it's going to be really
Oh,
lovely to be back
lovely.
together again. Yeah.
One of those days I will make it as well. It's just
Yeah.
Southeast London is a bit of a trek.
Yes, it's about as far while still staying in London, isn't it, from you?
Yeah, yeah. Well, I think it's because like southwest or the outer bits, they're really poorly connected.
Yes.
So you always have to go central and then back, and it's like, oh. But I'll make it at one point.
Good. Good.
Brilliant. Thank you so much for joining. I really enjoyed the conversation.
Oh,
Always
pleasure.
lovely
Thank
to
you.
talk to you. And I've
Thank you.
learned new things as well, even though I've been part of the community and have been around the block.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Every day's a
Yeah,
school day.
exactly. That's what the whole thing is about, just learning new things, even depending if you're there a year or 10 or 100, well, not 100, that's too long. But thanks so much. And thank you all for listening in. And I hope you enjoyed it. Let me know what you thought and have a lovely day. Bye, Maddie.
Thanks so much. Thank you. Bye.